At least one Florida school is covering up or removing books that have not been approved under a state law restricting instruction on race. ABC News obtained a copy of that directive from Manatee County. It tells its schools to, quote, remove or cover all materials that have not been vetted. The move comes amid an ongoing debate throughout the country over what should or shouldn't be taught in schools on issues of race. And in honor of Black History Month, our ABC News daily podcast, Start Here, is exploring how that debate is impacting how students learn about Black history. Podcast host Brad Mielke is here with more on that. Brad, thanks so much for coming on. Some of this debate centers around critical race theory, but it's also a term that a lot of people throw around, sometimes incorrectly. So can we just start at the beginning and explain what critical race theory is and the larger debate around it?
Yeah, what is this thing that everyone's talking about? So critical race theory has been discussed it's a concept going back several decades, really. It's not necessarily new. It gets taught at the college level. And it really revolves around the concept that you can't separate some key legal and policy concepts from systemic racism that led to them. So like an example would be, until a few years ago, it was legal in Louisiana to get convicted by not a unanimous jury. And you go, oh, that's interesting. It's kind of a quirk of Louisiana law. Interesting. Like, it's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. But it might change your perception if you knew that when slavery ended, all of a sudden there was this big labor crisis in Louisiana. All of a sudden you had to pay all these workers, except if they were criminals. If they were convicts, you didn't have to pay them. And so what would happen is you had more and more black men getting convicted of crimes. Well, now that you had black people serving on juries, if you had it so that they didn't have to be unanimously convicted, you could convict them and overrule some of these black folks on juries, and then all of a sudden you would, boom, free labor. So that, in critical race theory, would say you can't necessarily separate the current law from the historic prejudice. And so what we've seen now over the last several years is more and more critics of this that come predominantly from conservative lawmakers, from parents who say, hey, if you're teaching kids that America is fundamentally racist, that's going to create divisions in the classroom. But this is something that's taught at the college level. It's not taught at K through 12 education, but the backlash has created actual changes in K through 12 education, and so that's what we're taking a look at in this series.
Got it. Now, under the new Stop Woke law, Florida colleges are now restricted from teaching critical race theory and are being told that they now have to prove that they are not teaching critical race theory. I know that you spoke to a law professor who's now suing Florida, saying that this law infringes on teachers' and students' First Amendment rights. Walk us through the arguments there and what stuck out to you from your conversation.
Well, and this is what's so interesting, is a lot of the debate has been about, how's this going to affect kids? How's this critical race theory, something that's taught in colleges, is now being taken aim at in the colleges themselves, where you'd expect the future lawmakers of America to have a sense of like historic biases and stuff like that. So this professor we spoke to is not just a professor in Florida, where the Stop Woke Act is in effect. He's a professor at a historically black college at Florida A&M University, a state-funded college, and he says under this law, he might not be able to teach his own case book in which he talks about historic racism and how that's led to current laws in the state of Florida. Because essentially, if this law says if anything creates anguish or discomfort among your students, you're not allowed to teach it. So what was really interesting to me was he said, in slavery, enslaved people were not allowed to read. He draws a direct connection to that. He says that this feels like his students are no longer allowed to read, even in this bastion of black thought. They're not allowed to learn about the rules that they could somehow challenge one day.
Now, the critical race theory itself only happens at the college and university level, right. But the general debate around racial instruction on racial issues in classrooms, that's spanning even into younger levels of schooling, and it's spanning around the country. So what have you found about that debate and how it's impacting how students through all of these academic levels are learning about Black history, especially during Black History Month?
Well, in some ways, the debate over critical race theory has led to even sort of deeper questions about basic diversity and inclusion projects at schools. We actually talked to a couple high schoolers who are they're in St. Louis, and they have seen systematically funding for some of these diversity programs stripped from their schools. Again, because at every one of their school board meetings, teachers and administrators are being told, you're promoting this sort of this ideologue issue, and we want to get rid of it. And so you're seeing real programs get cut because of, again, critical race theory, something that's not taught at these schools.
So what do you hope people take away from this series?
I hope that people take away that this debate becomes something that is affecting children around the country, sometimes where critical race theory is not actually even being taught.
All right, Brad Mielke, we appreciate it. As always, thank you.
Thank you.
And you can listen to the ABC News podcast Start here on any major listening platform.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.